Marissa Williams had always been known as a sharp, confident, and driven businesswoman. As the CEO of one of the fastest growing tech companies in Silicon Valley, her name was synonymous with success. She had made her way to the top through years of hard work, brilliant ideas, and a relentless drive to innovate. But over the years, as she watched her company grow, she began to notice something unsettling, a stark divide that she had never fully acknowledged before. There was a gap between the leaders and the people who made the company run, the ones who worked tirelessly behind the scenes. The janitors, the cleaners, the maintenance staff, and those who made sure everything in the office ran smoothly. Their names were rarely mentioned in meetings, their faces never appeared in company newsletters, and their stories went untold. For years, Marissa had admired their work ethic, always recognizing the importance of their contributions. Yet, as a leader, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more beneath the surface, something deeper about these employees that she had overlooked. She spent her days in high-level meetings, making decisions that impacted thousands of people while the janitors worked in the background, doing what was necessary to keep the company running. The employees she worked with daily seemed to live in their own bubble, surrounded by high-tech gadgets and sleek office spaces, while the service staff, those who did the heavy lifting, were practically invisible. They were barely acknowledged, let alone celebrated for their contributions. Marissa knew she had a responsibility to bridge that divide, to understand the challenges these employees faced, and to learn about their lives beyond the walls of the polished corporate office. There was a part of her that couldn't accept the idea that these workers were living their lives in obscurity while the company they helped build flourished. She realized that their lives mattered just as much as those in the executive boardrooms, and their struggles deserved to be heard. One evening, after a particularly busy week filled with back-to-back meetings, Marissa decided to take a bold step. It wasn't a decision she made lightly, but it felt necessary, a way for her to truly experience the world of the service staff, to understand what their work really entailed, and to give herself a fresh perspective. She donned a janitor's uniform, complete with a cap and cleaning supplies, and made her way to the company building before the first shift of employees arrived. She knew that by going undercover, she would be able to experience firsthand the challenges, the physical toll, and the emotional weight that came with this line of work. The idea was simple: immerse herself in their world and understand what it was like to work in the shadows of corporate success. As Marissa slipped through the back doors of the building, she was immediately struck by the stark contrast in the environment. The sleek modern lobby, filled with polished floors and shimmering lights, stood in sharp contrast to the dimly lit hallways where the janitorial team worked. The office floors, buzzing with activity during business hours, felt worlds away from the quiet, sterile corridors that Marissa now walked through. As she pushed the cleaning cart down the long hallways, wiping down surfaces that no one would ever see, she couldn't help but feel a sense of humility. The spaces she had once considered ordinary were now filled with a deeper significance. These halls were the backdrop for all the high-level decisions that were made in the meeting rooms, yet they were often the most neglected. The hours passed quickly, and Marissa began to witness the physical and emotional toll the job took on the janitors. The work was physically demanding, requiring them to scrub, mop, and maintain the cleanliness of every inch of the office. The constant pressure to meet high expectations, the repetitive nature of the tasks, and the isolation of working at night left little room for connection or recognition. The janitors moved in silence, their only company being the hum of the cleaning equipment that filled the air. Marissa watched as the workers moved from one task to the next, rarely pausing to speak to one another. There was a certain quiet sadness in the way they moved about, absorbed in their tasks and unaware of the world around them. What struck Marissa the most was the lack of recognition. No one ever thanked the janitors for making the offices presentable for the corporate teams. There were no accolades for their hard work, no appreciation for the fact that their efforts kept the company's facilities in top condition. She realized that despite their crucial role in the company's operations, the janitors were invisible to the people who worked in the office buildings. No one ever saw them as more than just cleaners. and they certainly weren't recognized for their contributions in the way that other departments were. It was as if their hard work went unnoticed, taken for granted by everyone who passed through the clean, polished spaces that the janitors had created. As Marissa was nearing the end of her shift, she overheard a conversation between two janitors in the break room. One of them, an older man named Victor, was talking to his coworker about his dream of opening his own business one day. His voice was filled with passion and excitement, but there was also a hint of sadness in it. It was clear that Victor had long ago placed this dream on the shelf, buried under the weight of his daily responsibilities. He had never had the chance to pursue it because no one had ever taken the time to listen to his story, to hear about his aspirations. Marissa was stunned. This wasn't just a janitor, this was a man with dreams, with goals, and with a vision for his future. She had always known that the janitors were hardworking, but she had never stopped to think that they, too, had lives beyond the walls of the office. They were not just workers, they were individuals with stories, ambitions, and talents that had been silenced by the very system they helped sustain. In that moment, Marissa realized how deeply she had missed the mark. She had spent her life chasing business success, and in doing so, had failed to see the untapped potential in the people who made that success possible. Before leaving that night, Marissa made a promise to herself. She would find a way to ensure that the voices of the janitorial staff were heard. She didn't know exactly how or when, but she knew that this experience had changed her forever. She had gained a new perspective, a deeper understanding of the struggles that these workers faced. They weren't just cleaning the offices, they were shaping the company's success in their own quiet, unseen way. And now it was her responsibility to give them the recognition they deserved. The next morning, as Marissa Williams walked into her CEO office, the weight of the previous night's experience lingered heavily in her thoughts. Her mind buzzed with reflections, realizations, and the deep sense of responsibility she now felt. No one on her executive team knew about her undercover venture as a janitor, and she wasn't sure if she would ever tell them. The anonymity of the act gave her a unique insight into the lives of those who worked behind the scenes of the company she had built. She had witnessed their daily struggles, their silent contributions, and their untold stories that had never once been acknowledged in the boardrooms or by the leadership team. In that moment, Marissa knew something had to change, and it was up to her to make it happen. Sitting at her polished mahogany desk, Marissa glanced out of her office window, watching the sunrise reflect off the glass buildings in the distance. It was a sight that symbolized achievement, success, and growth, values that had long been at the heart of her company. But in that moment, it also reminded her of the gap that existed in her company, a divide she had never fully understood until now. She had spent years focusing on the bottom line, building a multi-million-dollar business and nurturing high-performing teams, but she had missed the stories of the people who kept the very infrastructure of that success intact. She had forgotten about the people who did the hard, dirty work, the ones whose names and faces were invisible to everyone except those who needed them. As her reflection on the janitors' lives deepened, one moment continued to stand out. Victor, the older janitor she had overheard speaking about his dream of owning a business. His words had pierced her, reminding her of how easily dreams could fade into the background, never to be realized because no one had cared enough to listen. How many other employees in similar roles had hidden potential? How many others had aspirations, skills, or creative ideas that had been buried under years of silence and routine? This was not just a problem of the janitors, it was a systemic issue that affected every level of the company. Marissa could no longer turn a blind eye to it. It was time to create a platform where all voices could be heard, where every employee, no matter their role, would be seen and valued. The more Marissa thought about it, the clearer her vision became. She wasn't going to let the company continue as it had before, with only a select few being recognized for their contributions while the rest remained in the shadows. It was time to foster a culture of inclusivity, of growth, and of mutual respect, one that recognized the value in every person. That afternoon, Marissa called a meeting with her executive team. She didn't reveal the details of her undercover experience as a janitor. Instead, she focused on the bigger picture, the need for change. As her leadership team gathered in the conference room, Marissa's voice resonated with determination. We need to do more than just talk about being an inclusive company, she began, standing tall at the head of the table. We need to take action. We need to recognize and elevate the voices of those who have long been invisible in this company. Our janitorial staff, our maintenance workers, the people who keep this place running behind the scenes. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. We owe them our gratitude, but more importantly, we owe them a chance to thrive. The room was silent for a moment as her team absorbed the gravity of her words. Some of them exchanged glances, uncertain about what she was proposing. But Marissa's resolve was unwavering. I'm introducing a new initiative, she continued. It's called The Voices Behind Success. The goal is to provide every employee, no matter their role, with the opportunity to share their stories, their experiences, and their aspirations. We will create a platform where everyone is encouraged to speak up, to contribute ideas, and to be recognized for the work they do. She paused, letting her words sink in. But it's not just about recognition. It's about providing a pathway for growth. We'll pair employees from all levels with senior managers. We'll set up mentorship programs, offer training opportunities, and help them achieve their goals, whether that's gaining new skills, advancing in their careers, or pursuing personal dreams. Marissa's eyes swept across the room, meeting the gazes of her leadership team. We can't afford to leave anyone behind. If we want to build a company that thrives on true collaboration, we need to invest in every individual. And that means taking responsibility for the untapped potential in every corner of this organization. The team was quiet for a moment, but then one of the senior managers, Linda, spoke up. I think this is a great idea, Marissa. We've always said that our success is driven by our people, but I see what you're saying. If we're truly committed to being a people-first organization, then we need to give everyone the chance to grow. But how do we start? Marissa smiled. That's exactly what I want to figure out together. We're going to launch the program with a few key elements, mentorship, training, and a series of company-wide listening sessions. I want every employee to have a chance to speak, directly to leadership to feel heard, and to know that their voice matters. The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The initiative Marissa had introduced began to take shape in ways she hadn't even imagined. The company held town hall meetings where janitorial staff, maintenance workers, and other employees had the chance to share their stories with the wider team. At first, the feedback was overwhelming. Some employees were nervous, unsure if they would be taken seriously, but with each session, the walls began to come down. People who had once felt invisible were now stepping forward, sharing their challenges, their dreams, and their ideas. Victor, the janitor who had once dreamed of opening his own business, was one of the first to speak up. He shared his story with the company's leadership team and, to his surprise, was met with support rather than indifference. Marissa paired him with a senior manager who had experience in entrepreneurship, and together, they created a roadmap for Victor to develop his business ideas. The company even offered him a small business loan to help get his side project off the ground. The success of Victor's mentorship was just the beginning. Other janitorial staff members and lower-level employees began taking part in training programs, with some advancing into administrative roles. As the months went by, Marissa watched with pride as the once-overlooked employees grew in confidence and capability. The initiative was having a profound impact on the company culture. People were no longer just workers. They were valued team members with unique skills, ideas, and aspirations. The shift in culture didn't happen overnight, but by the end of the year, Marissa had witnessed a transformation. The company was not only more successful, but also more connected, more inclusive, and more motivated. Employees who had once felt invisible were now making significant contributions to the business, and the leadership team was more engaged and invested in the company's people than ever before. Marissa had learned a powerful lesson in leadership. True success isn't just about the profits or the numbers, it's about the people who make it all possible. When you empower every employee, regardless of their role, you create a culture of innovation, collaboration, and growth. And that, she realized, was the real strength of her company. Marissa's journey proves that leadership isn't just about titles or profits, it's about recognizing the potential in every person, no matter their role. If you believe in the power of inclusion and want to see how small changes can lead to big transformations, join us at Expect Stories. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of real life change, untold stories, and empowering moments. Let's continue to celebrate the voices that often go unheard and create a world where every story matters.